Hi, I'm Peter Martin. Welcome to McTears Auctioneers in Glasgow. We are here today to witness possibly one of the biggest football memorabilia sales of a particular collection in many a long year. Well, I'm delighted to say joining me to explain all about this collection is James Bruce, who's the auctioneer and valuer, looking at the sale of Stevie Chalmers' medal collection. The Celtic great sadly passed away in April of 2019 at the age of 83 years of age, but he will forever be remembered by Celtic fans as the man who scored one of the most important goals in the club's history. In fact, I would go as far as to say the most important goal in the club's history.
Certainly
James.
The most important goal, that 83rd minute goal which secured the cup in Lisbon, 25th May 1967.
Now, I'm looking at this collection here. Not only the medals are going up for auction, James, but of course some iconic strips which we will look at a little later on. But the collection here, he won every domestic honour in the game. He won 5 Scotland caps. And of course, the ultimate one is the European Cup in 1967. I have to think long and hard about a medal collection that comes up like this. It's so rare. One of the things that sticks in my mind, though, James, is Tommy Gemmell. I asked him why he sold all his collection, and he said, well, my kids can't eat the medals. It must have been a tremendously difficult decision for the family to put this all up.
Well, it's the family have come to a decision that it's no time for this archive, and you know it's an archive that pinpoints some of the greatest moments in the career of one of Celtic's all-time greatest goal scorers, to go to another custodian, a sports custodian here. But yeah, the medals themselves are lot 1888, no coincidence there. Probably the most important lot that we have within that sale. And as you'll see here, we've got the 5 medals that were won, as well as the Commemorative Medal, which was awarded at the end of the 66-67 season. Within those, we have, starting off here, we've got the Scottish League Cup, which was contested 29th October 1966. Now, this was the first award that they picked up, first bit of silverware in that annus mirabilis. And really, it was won at Hampden against who else but old firm rivals Rangers, which was a fiercely contested match. But that 1-0 goal, Bobby Lennox, I believe the scorer, secured that first piece of silverware for Celtic that season. Moving on, we have, of course, the Glasgow Cup, still contested today. Not one of the 3 major tournaments, but still a big tournament in its own right, and contested amongst the Glasgow clubs. Now, Celtic in this tournament won it. It was a week after the Scottish League Cup, and they won it against Partick Thistle. Now, the score in that match was 4-0, played at Partick Thistle's ground, and that was the third of 3 4-0 victories, first beating Rangers 4-0 at Ibrox, going on to beat Queen's Park 4-0, and then securing this cup, the second piece of silverware, 4-0 against Partick. Moving on into the new year, 1967, we have the Scottish Cup, of course, not just the League Cup contested between all the Scottish teams, and that was a fairly straightforward affair for Celtic. I believe they replayed Clyde in the build-up to the final, but in the replay secured a victory at about 3-0. Going forward, it was Aberdeen they met in the final, beating them with a resounding 2-0 scoreline, recording the highest attendance of the season, and that was 126,000 fans at Hampden Stadium. Now, shortly after, we go on to the Scottish League, the Scottish First Division, of course, back then. And despite picking up all 3 of these beforehand, the Scottish League was a bit more of a toe-to-toe affair. It went down to the wire, again with city rivals, old firm rivals, Rangers.
Yeah, the one thing I remember about this one, and a number of Celtic fans will, look at this and think to themselves, they can remember the game. It's Ibrox, It's pouring with rain. Helenio Herrera, who's the Inter Milan manager, is in the stands watching it. And of course, everybody looks back and they can remember Jimmy Johnson scoring an absolute cracker. This ended up 2-2, but it was enough for Celtic.
Yeah, it clinched it with the point, meaning that Rangers could no longer catch them in the league. And you're quite right. 6th of May was the date, of course, 19 days from that fateful final in Lisbon, 25th of May 1967. And that medal itself, you know, it's iconic in its design, everything from the burgundy and blue enamel flag to the football, and on the other side, of course, Vanquers 1967 is inscribed. Now, of course, we were familiar with the route to Lisbon, early victories against Zurich, Nantes, a fiercely fought battle against Vojvodina, of course, as well, which was 1-0 away to Vojvodina in Novi Sad. The home leg, Chalmers scored the first goal, of course, with a Billy McNeil header in the closing stages of the match, securing progression to the semis against Dukla, which they saw off into the final against Inter Milan.
It's amazing, but the Dukla game, I think Jock Stein actually, you know, he highlights the fact that not only were they a tough side, but I think Stevie Chalmers and so many of the team played an unusual kind of defensive game just to make sure that they could get there.
You're quite right. I mean, the home leg at Parkhead was an emphatic 3-1 victory. And Celtic's style at the time, I think Jimmy Johnston described it as the Dutch style sped up. So they were an attacking team going all out. After they secured that 3-1 victory at Parkhead, in the second leg, Jock Stein opted, and so the story goes, later on he didn't like to talk about it so much, opted for an ultra-defensive tactic, which managed to see them eke out the game, which, you know, obviously proved fruitful because it got them through to that final in Lisbon. The final itself as well, no, that was some match. The stats really go to show. It was within the first 10 minutes, I believe, Jim Craig, who brought down one of the Inter players within the box, conceding a penalty, which they, of course, put through to the goal. And after that, they just put typical cynical but ultra-effective style, 11 men behind the ball.
Catenaccio,
that's the one. And the stats really go to show, I think Celtic had 39 shots, 19 of which were saved, 20 of which missed the target, and an extra 2 hit the crossbar, I believe. Of course, in the 63rd minute, that proved fruitful as Tommy Gemmell, whose boots we sold last year at McTears, scored that goal, the equaliser. Going forward, 83rd minute, 20 minutes exactly later, Gemmell again, through to Lennox, through to Chalmers, who scored that goal, which secured the game and the cup.
Yeah, I've got to lift it. I mean, there's a little bit of weight in it as well. Yeah. And as you mentioned there, Vancouver 1967 on the back there, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, as you mentioned there, the colour on it, every Celtic fan knows this medal, and it's utterly unique. Stevie Chalmers scoring the goal that won it in 1967, and that is the medal there. It is unbelievable. Celtic 2, Inter Milan 1, the 25th of May, 1967, and someone or a club or a group are going to have the best collection ever of medals. I just get a feeling that one individual or one club might have it in their possession by the end. I certainly hope so. But this one here is obviously the icing on the cake.
Yeah, so what we have here is the Commemorative Medal, which at the end was awarded to those players who received all 5 medals there. And it really just, as you say, the icing on the cake sums up what was the annus mirabilis for Celtic Football Club, which without Stevie Chalmers' goal wouldn't have won all 5 medals.
Yeah, it's a fabulous collection. These are the medals. We're going to have a look at the strips, but just to give you an indication, Stevie Chalmers, 12 seasons at Celtic Park, over 400 appearances and well over 200 goals for the Parkhead club. He really is an iconic figure in the history of Celtic Football Club, a legend, a Lisbon Lion, and his contribution will never be forgotten. And if you think the medals are special, wait till you see the strips. Well, James, we had a look at some special medals. Now we're going to have a look at some special shirts. And the one thing that screams out at me here is the size of the shorts. Stevie Chalmers, you can tell he was at the absolute top of his game. I don't even think I'd get them on one leg.
No, you're quite right. We've got certainly some shorts here with various numbers you might notice as well. Stevie Chalmers was most iconic, his number 9 jersey, but he also, of course, played in number 7, number 10 as well we've got here. Played in 11 and 8, I believe, too. We've got a variety of jerseys really on offer, everything from his time at Celtic Football Club through to his 5 international caps.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the 5 caps, because if you're thinking 67 was a special year, this one wasn't a bad year as well. June 1966, at this point, Stevie Chalmers hasn't actually won the medals, but he certainly managed to get himself one of the most iconic tops in history, Pele's number 10 shirt.
Number 10 Brazil jersey, of course. It was the first meeting between Scotland and Brazil in the build-up to the 1966 World Cup in England, of course, the fixture arranged. And it was Chalmers who scored the opener, ending in a respectable 1-1 draw. Brazil, of course, having Pele, Jersey, and at the end of the match, as tradition would have it, you usually would swap jersey with the player closest to you. The player closest to Pele was, in fact, Billy Bremner. No, I believe Billy's reputation lived up to itself, and it was quite a fierce match. And Pele deliberately sought out Chalmers to swap jerseys with, him being, of course, the scorer of the opening goal. But yeah, below it, of course, as well, a jersey that almost needs no introduction, the Internacional Jersey from the 67 final. Now, this jersey was swapped between Chalmers and Gianfranco Badin, iconic player for Milan, played with them for 10 seasons, helped them lift the cup in 65. And just look at it, I mean, you can look at the quality of that. It's quite heavy, it's almost like a jumper.
Yeah.
You imagine playing in the heat of Lisbon or indeed Italy.
And Stevie Chalmers scores the goal that wins the European Cup in 1967. And I always remember afterwards, Stevie Chalmers photographed in that shirt. And I think he might have been alongside Tommy Gemmell in it. It was a great picture.
Yeah, I know the picture. Indeed, it's iconic. Much like, with the Pele jersey, there is that picture of them at the end of the match. Swapping Chalmers and Pele.
There's nothing better though, if you're talking about shirts, throw in a pair of boots. They might look like old boots, but they're boots worn by Stevie Chalmers. I got to put a figure on this. Are we talking 150,000? Are we talking 250,000? Possibly more, because Pele jerseys are so rare to come up for auction.
They are so rare to come up for auction, and of course, I think the most expensive one, it was from the 1970 World Cup, sold for in excess of 150,000. This jersey, one of the most iconic jerseys, that number 10 Pele jersey, it's in at an estimate of 50 to 100,000 for our sale on the 13th at Sporting Medals and Trophies auction.
Well, I'm going to be here to watch and see exactly how much that jersey goes for. Let's not forget Stevie Chalmers, of course, won 5 Scotland caps, played for the Football League, as you mentioned as well. So there are some fantastic Scotland jerseys too. And as we move along here, James, never mind the fact that he played with distinction over 400 times for Celtic. Some of the jerseys that he managed to swap along the way, Feyenoord there, Penarol sticks in the memory, and of course Red Star Belgrade. This one here is fantastic because great memories of a fantastic AC Milan side.
Yes, well, you're quite right. 1969 was the year, the quarter-finals. Celtic met with AC Milan, the other side of Milan here, the red and black jersey. Now, in the quarter-finals, Celtic would lose this game 1-0 to Milan. Now, of course, whilst the result was disappointing, AC Milan would then go on to secure the European Cup that season. Whilst they lost, it was a fairly noble defeat, we could say, to that Milan side.
Incredible shirt. And then as we go along here, everything you would associate with Stevie Chalmers, finishing off with, 1967 is a special year. That's an iconic strip worn by Stevie. There's other Celtic strips, and of course one of them up here, James, unbelievably rare, but this is the early days, the away shirt that Celtic would wear.
No, this is one of my favourite within the cell, and it is back before there were official away jerseys. This was one of the first Celtic away jerseys. No Celtic, of course, the crest, the famous crest, the 4-leaf clover. What we have here is a 3-leaf clover worn from around about the mid-1950s to mid-1960s, and it's just an iconic look looking at it. But yeah.
It's a sensational collection, never mind the shirts. The medals are unbelievable. Just to finish with, James, tell us when the auction's taking place, and of course what time people need to get here to witness this special collection going up for auction.
Yeah, certainly. The sale will be taking place here at McTears on the 13th of March, so just over 2 weeks' time, and the sale will be starting at 2:30. Of course, sporting medals and trophies features a lot of other historic items, but the Stevie Chalmers collection, those 32 lots are right at the end of the sale, so be sure not to miss out.
Yeah, Stevie Chalmers, a wonderful player, an icon, a legend, a Lisbon Lion. It is a collection that very rarely will you see at an auction house. Unbelievable medals, fantastic strips, a wealth of memories, and of course many a Celtic fan would love to get their hands on even one of these items. Thanks to James, and thanks to McTears for allowing us to take a trip down memory lane.